Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my first check in for No Nut November. I wanted to make a YouTube video just to document my journey on semen retention for No Nut November. It's something that I've tried to take part in for the past few years now, actually, and I've never really been successful at it. I've never made it past kind of 1 week. Or the first week I always seem to stumble or to fail and relapse. So this is the first time I've actually made it past that point. So I wanted to make something to document and kind of record how I'm feeling throughout the month, really. Um, because I'm curious to see if this brings any benefits. I'm very curious about, is semen retention, is it all sort of a placebo effect? Is there something to it? Is there something deeper going on? And I think to really answer that question, you have to kind of go through and experience it for yourself. Watching videos on YouTube or listening to somebody else's experience gives you some idea, but I think to truly be able to answer that question, I have to take this journey myself. And it's something that like I said, I've had an interest in before. I've known about semen retention and the supposed benefits of retention for a great many, well, a few years. So I'm curious to try it myself, and I'm also curious for anybody else out there who is interested or is on their retention journey as well. I'm interested to know how you guys are finding it. Do you find that it's beneficial? Is it uh, are there downsides to retention that you've experienced? How do you deal with urges, and how do you cope with that? Did you have an addiction of any kind before you started this? So I don't know. I just thought I'd come on and sort of ramble in front of a camera, which is something that I've actually done before with YouTube and on a totally unrelated topic. But when I did that before, I know a few people actually found that quite entertaining to watch and quite useful for the time that that series was going. So I just thought I'd come on, talk about how I found this first week, maybe the reasons why I've chose to participate in November this year. And then my plan is then just to document maybe once or twice a week, how I'm getting on, um, what I'm finding. It's a way to expend a lot of the excess energy that I'm now feeling, which I'll go into in a moment. But yeah, I just wanted a form of media or kind of a creative outlet that I could talk about and sort of share my experience with what I'm feeling at the moment. So why am I doing this? Why take part in No Not November? Why is there such an interest for me in semen retention? I've known about semen retention probably for the best part of 10 years. It's been, I've been aware of it probably since I'm 28 now. Probably when I was in my late teens to my early 20s is when I first started to sort of hear about and people were talking about semen retention around me. I've always dabbled with it on and off throughout the years, but never really found that I could stick to it and that I could retain. I always had a corn, if we're going to call it that for YouTube, a corn addiction. Always struggled with that type of content. Watched it from a very very early age, like I'm sure I know a lot of other men out there have experienced that as well. And I feel like, especially for young men, in kind of the broader topic of men's mental health and where I think men are at the moment, I think corn is very very damaging and is not good for us at all. I think it's damaging our relationship with women, as in men in general. I feel like it damages our relationship with ourselves as well. Low self esteem, feelings of guilt, feelings of shame. Kind of, I don't think anyone with an addiction to porn watches it, and once they've watched it and they've ejaculated or whatever, no one's kind of sat there thinking, I'm really proud of myself, that was a really good thing to do. And I think it's sort of a vicious cycle for a lot of people, that because they would do, if you're like me, you've been doing it since such a young age, that it's now kind of just become habit. I mean, I was masturbating most of the time, but I wasn't even really that horny, you know. Um, I wouldn't masturbate because I had an erection, or I wouldn't masturbate because I was switched on. I would masturbate because it was habit, or because I was bored, or stressed, or whatever. And I didn't like that about myself, and I don't think that's a good place or direction for men to be at, or to go in. So I've always wanted to get out of that habit and to try and find a more healthy outlet for intimacy and for that kind of pleasure. Um, Me, speaking personally, I've never really had a serious relationship. I've never really had um, a partner, and again, I think that comes down to never really having the confidence, never being in shape, never kind of bettering myself to the point where I'm desirable in a relationship for somebody. And and the kind of outlet for that, the coping mechanism for that, look, for me, and I think for a lot of guys as well, is pornography, and is gooning, and watching that type of content. It's how we release that sort of that tension that obviously we can't release in a healthy way with a partner or whatever. So those are some of the reasons, and I've always heard a lot about the benefits of retention, and there's sort of a spiritual dimension to it as well. That's quite appealing to me, because I'm quite interested in spirituality. I'm quite interested in tapping into our higher consciousness, into high vibrational sort of energy. That's interesting to me as well. So it's got association with that, and that's the claim benefit of people who have been retaining for a long time, is that it's much easier to connect in that way, with those higher planes of being, with those higher sort of frequencies, which definitely resonates with me and interests me. So those are the whys for me. That's why I want to try this. I want to experience it for myself. I've talked to friends before and kind of said, do you think there's anything to this? Have you tried it? And it's always kind of, no, I think it's BS. I don't really. I think it's healthy to masturbate. I think it's healthy to whatever. And I I don't really feel that way. I think men are lost at the moment. I think these things like OnlyFans, the amount of the way that advertising the world is so many things in society now is sexualized, and it kind of feels like a trap for men, for women in ways, I suppose, as well. um I don't feel like that's the optimal path. Watching porn, OnlyFans, paying for that type of content. Um, it's not where we want to be sort of heading. Um, so that's the why. And to check in briefly, well, to check in with actually how I've found this week. I would say I have felt genuinely better for retaining. So it's today is the 9th of November. I last ejaculated on the 31st of October, so I've been in retention for since the 1st of November. So 9 days now. This is day number 9 for me. And I do genuinely feel like it's benefited me, and retention is really the only thing that's changed massively for me in the month of November. So that's all I can put this sort of positive feeling down to. It's not like I've changed medication or I'm on some kind of new diet or anything sort of like that. There are no other real external factors that I could think of that have contributed to my improvement in mood, and I'll get into kind of more of how I felt better as well. But there's nothing I can contribute those improvements to other than retention. So I felt a lot more kind of at peace, a lot more content. Uh, I don't know if happy is the right word. It's more sort of content, at peace. I've had a really stressful week at work. So I've been taking over a new department. We've had one of the managers leave at work. I've been sort of taking over her department, her work, which has been sort of a really stressful time. These past couple of weeks, really. But while I've been retaining, I've felt a lot more able to deal with that stress. I feel like it hasn't sort of affected me as much as it would have usually. It's still affected me. I've still been stressed, and I noticed that because of my eating. I've been eating a lot of junk food, which is probably a release for me from that. But I feel definitely better equipped within kind of the moment, I guess, to deal with that stress. I haven't got really angry or really upset, or I've kind of taken, my tolerance has been a lot higher than it would have been usually. So that for me is the major thing that I've noticed. And I've also noticed these past few days, especially kind of day 7 onwards, these past couple of days, um, kind of a sense of self worth, because, like I say, I've always tried sim. I've tried sim and retention in the past, and I've never really gotten past the 1 week mark, and I'm past that now. I'm on day 9, and this is maybe the furthest, if not close to the furthest, that I've ever got into retention, and there have been sort of difficulties with wanting to relapse with really sort of sexual and horny thoughts, and I haven't given into them, and I at the moment feel nowhere near that I will give into them, because there's this sort of sense of achievement and of pride for coming this far, because a lot of guys, they try November and they can't do it. They can't do a week. They can't, some people can't even do a couple of days without, relapsing, without having to go back and watch corn or whatever. And so that's been really good for me. And I'm kind of, because I've been on Reddits and been watching videos of different people along the journey as well, who've maybe done this in the past, who are doing it currently. And, a lot of people say sort of day 2, day 3, they're really horny, and they were really struggling. And I don't know if it's because my addiction is maybe lesser so than theirs, but the first few days I didn't really struggle with any of that. I didn't struggle with lust or feeling horny particularly. Maybe it's because of what was going on with external things like work or whatever. But I um, I never really struggled in the first few days, but especially since day seven, since a week, I've I've really felt it these past couple of days. There have been some really strong urges where I've wanted to wake up and get the hub up on my phone, or wanted to kind of relapse and go back to old habits. And it would be really easy to, even right now, it would be really easy to relapse. And that's been a big struggle for me these past couple of days. It's been really, really difficult. But like I say, because I've been able to not succumb to that, to kind of fight through that, it's bringing on a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment. And I want to keep that going. And the other big benefit, I suppose, that I've noticed as well is my energy levels have really gone up, really, really gone up. Again, especially, it kind of seems like the first week it was more of a feeling of, like I say, a bit of inner peace, a bit of contentedness. And it seems like these past couple of days now, since that 7 day mark, it's like, wow, okay, I'm starting to get even more sort of benefits. And that's the thing with semen retention, is that the longer that you go into it, the more benefits you supposedly feel, which for me at the moment is definitely true. And I'm feeling really energetic. I think the one downside of that for me is that I'm not sleeping very well. I last night I fell to sleep about 9 o'clock. I woke up about 1 o'clock in the morning after having really, really intense sexual dreams. It wasn't a wet dream, but it was like a really intense sort of, um, you know, stimulative dream. And I went back to sleep, had another one, and then I was awake at 6 a.m. and I couldn't get back to sleep because I don't know. You just kind of wake up sometimes, and you're really horny, or you just feel like you've got all this excess sort of pent up energy and stuff. And I think the key for me probably is now redirecting that energy and using that energy so it doesn't cause a relapse. And I can try and sort of construct that into something that's useful, to something that's beneficial, creative. And that was kind of the point of this video, really, is to channel that energy into something else. So that's kind of where I've been at for my first week. It's I think there's definitely something to this. I don't think it's a placebo. I really don't. I don't think this is all in my head. There's definitely physical changes for me. I'd say that the energy these past few days is really, really sort of increased, and that's a positive and a negative. And even before that, the inner feeling of contentness, of calmness, of feeling grounded. Again, that's not something that I think was a placebo either. Well, it wasn't a placebo because I felt it, and because I was able to cope a lot better with work than I would usually, or with stress than I would usually. So yeah, so really interesting for me. Really interesting to kind of see how it's affecting me. Definitely want to keep going. I've challenged myself no matter what. Even if tomorrow I don't feel any further benefits from this, I set myself a challenge to see out November, to see out this 30 days, and just as a self imposed sort of challenge. So I will continue to the 30 days. I will document when I feel like something has happened that's noteworthy, or that I feel it will benefit me to come on video and talk about. And of course, if you're watching this and you find it interesting or insightful, or you want to talk about your retention journey. Maybe you felt different things to me. Maybe you felt similar things to me. I would love to hear how you're finding your journey, where you are in your journey. I'd love to share that, and happy to speak to anybody about that. So yeah, I hope this video was useful to somebody somewhere. I'm not making this for fame or for money or anything like that, or to have a YouTube career. It's more of a creative outlet for me, a personal outlet for me. If and if that's all it is, that's absolutely fine. So but I hope someone somewhere enjoyed this and found it useful. And who knows, we could create a following in our own little community. Who knows? So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and see you at the next one.